At my termination meeting, the CEO's son smirked as he pushed a 22K severance across the table after I saved the company millions. "You're nothing without us," he said. But I had already activated the non-compete clause that would destroy them from within. And then the board begged me to come back. At the termination meeting, "You're just logistics, Savannah. This company built you, not the other way around." Logan Whitmore slides the severance papers across the desk like he's gifting me something precious. $18,000. That's what 6 years of rebuilding their entire operations is worth. My hands don't shake. Not because I'm calm, because I'm ready. He doesn't know that I've already triggered the clause buried on page 7 of the employment contract, the one even his father forgot existed. But let me rewind. My name is Savannah Reed. And if you've ever been discarded by someone who thought they owned you, this story is for you. I was the director of supply optimization at Whitmore and Gale, one of the biggest logistics firms in Kentucky. Not flashy work, but I was the one who kept the wheels turning while the big names took all the credit. I joined fresh out of grad school. And Marshall Whitmore, the founder, Logan's father, saw potential when no one else did. He gave me a shot. In 18 months, I turned their crumbling Mid-South operations into their most profitable region. I streamlined supplier chains, renegotiated bloated contracts, and saved the company millions. And then Logan came back. He returned from expanding international partnerships, which we all knew meant partying across Europe on the corporate card. The first red flag was obvious. A new title appeared on the org chart: Deputy VP of Strategic Expansion. It didn't exist before, but it mirrored my role almost exactly. "Logan will be shadowing Savannah on the Delta Initiative," Marshall announced one Tuesday. My project, 18 months of work. All of it suddenly became ours. He walked in that day in designer loafers and a Rolex his father probably gifted him for surviving business school. He smirked like the job was a formality. "I've got some bold new ideas," he said, flipping a pen in his fingers. "This division needs fresh blood." The room went quiet. I nodded politely. But I went home that night and opened my employment contract. Buried deep, right next to the standard non-compete, was something interesting, something mutual. The same clause that stopped me from working for competitors also barred the company from hiring industry veterans from competitors to replace me. The wording was precise, protective, and soon devastating. I bookmarked it, just in case. Want to hear how a spoiled heir destroyed his own empire and how I turned that into the perfect revenge? Like this video and drop a comment with your city. I want to know where my revenge warriors are watching from. Now back to the story. Over the next few weeks, Logan turned every meeting into a circus. He questioned my vendor strategies in front of staff, rewrote plans midstream, pushed out our longest-standing supplier over a 3% cost differential. I warned him, gently. He ignored me loudly. The first real blow came during our quarterly review with the board. I had prepped a 60-slide presentation that mapped every detail of the Delta Initiative: risk assessments, projections, market entry strategies. Logan hijacked it. Marshall told me 5 minutes before the meeting, "Logan will be presenting. You'll be there to assist." I sat silently as Logan butchered my work, mispronounced supplier names I'd known for years, lied about being the architect of the cost savings plan I spent months drafting. The board applauded. Marshall smiled like a proud dad, and I learned something important that day. I didn't need to burn them down. They were already soaking themselves in gasoline. 3 weeks later, I started winding down. Not quitting, just stopping all the invisible labor that had made things work. I created transition documents that looked complete but lacked the instincts, the nuances, the unwritten rules. When suppliers complained about Logan's take-it-or-leave-it tactics, I responded professionally, but without my usual warmth. And when Marshall finally called me into his office to say the company was streamlining and that Logan would be absorbing my responsibilities, I didn't argue. I signed the papers. Quietly. They didn't notice that clause I had already triggered. They didn't know I'd already met with every major vendor they relied on. They didn't know I had lunch with the regional buyer from Westbridge Logistics, their biggest client. They didn't know what was coming. 3 days after I walked out with my cardboard box, my phone buzzed. It was Janelle, my former assistant, whispering like she was hiding in a supply closet. "Savannah, it's starting," she said. Westbridge just pulled their account. Logan told them their rush order buffer wasn't in the contract. I closed my eyes. Of course he did. The buffer wasn't in the contract. It was a handshake deal I'd built over 3 years. It saved us when we had backlogs. It made Westbridge feel like a priority client, not just another line item. And now, Logan had dismantled it in 5 minutes. They walked out mid-meeting, Janelle said. Marshall is losing it. I didn't laugh, I didn't gloat. I stirred my coffee and said calmly, they'll figure it out. But I knew they wouldn't. Because they didn't understand the machine I'd built, the rhythm, the timing, the quiet favors and urgent calls at midnight that kept the entire engine running. A week passed. Then, too, Janelle called again. Her voice was shaking. They've lost 3 more clients. Nobody can explain the routing for Harker Steel. And Logan told them they were too demanding when they asked for the same customized dock access I arranged 5 years ago. That was the day Eric Vega texted me. The head of IT, one of the few people who'd backed me during my rise. They're trying to hire Amy Tran from Corridor Supply to replace you, his message read, offering her double what you made. I didn't reply. I didn't have to. Because Amy had worked for a direct competitor. And remember that clause buried in our contracts? I had my attorney send a cease and desist the next morning. Rivera Supply's legal team piled on too. The same clause I'd reviewed the night I met Logan. The clause that prevented them from hiring replacements from any similar industry role was ironclad. And their own policy. They tried again with a guy from North Axis Logistics. Another letter, another block. Week 3 after my departure, I was sitting at a cafe in downtown Louisville, enjoying a rare slow morning, when I heard a familiar voice ordering a triple espresso. I didn't even have to look. The voice belonged to Marshall Whitmore. When he turned around and saw me, his expression froze. Then slowly, carefully, he walked over. "May I?" he asked, pointing to the empty chair across from me. I nodded. He looked thinner. The tension was eating him alive. "How are you, Savannah?" he asked, like a man who wasn't sure if I'd stab him with my spoon. "I'm well," I said. "And you?" he sighed. "Westbridge is gone. Harker's threatening legal action. We can't find anyone to decode your systems." I sipped my latte. "I'm sure Logan has some fresh ideas," he flinched. "Savannah, I'll be direct. We need you back. Triple your salary. Equity, board seat." I tilted my head. The same man who let me go without a proper goodbye now begging me to return. "I appreciate the offer," I said smoothly, "but I've already launched my own firm." His eyes narrowed. "Our non-compete applies to direct competitors," I interrupted. "I'm consulting for adjacent industries, not competitors. You know that if your legal team had actually read the clause they wrote." He blinked. "You planned this?" he asked. "No," I said. "I prepared," and I left him there, jaw clenched, watching me walk away for the second time, this time by choice. But things were just getting started. 2 weeks later, Janelle called again. She didn't even say hello, just whispered, "You won't believe what just happened." Logan and Marshall got into a screaming match in the boardroom. I put her on speaker and leaned back in my office chair, watching the golden light fade over the Louisville skyline. "What triggered it?" I asked. "Numbers are tanking," she said. "Quarterly performance is a disaster. Logan blamed you, said the systems you left behind were a maze of confusion." I smiled. "And what did Marshall say?" Janelle exhaled. "He told Logan he gave him everything and he's watched him torch it." I imagined it. Logan pacing, red in the face, grasping at excuses. The golden boy finally facing the fire without his golden parachute. "There's more," she added. "The board's calling an emergency meeting tomorrow. Everyone's panicking. I think layoffs are coming." By now, the industry was buzzing. Clients talked. Vendors whispered. Word had spread that Whitmore and Gale was in chaos. Their stock had dropped 19%. The Delta Initiative, my baby, their southern expansion, had been quietly paused. The empire was bleeding, and I was thriving. My consulting firm, Reed Strategies, had signed 5 new clients. None of them direct competitors. All of them companies who had once admired Whitmore and Gale's precision. Now they were calling the architect. I worked out of a sleek co-working space with 3 junior consultants and the best espresso machine in Kentucky. My phone buzzed constantly, people asking for meetings, strategies, salvation. One night, after a dinner meeting with a potential investor, I stepped into the bar to close my tab. And there he was. Logan Whitmore, alone at the bar, hunched over a whiskey glass like it owed him an apology. His once perfect hair was a mess. His suit looked like it had slept in a ball on the floor. He didn't notice me until I sat down next to him. "Savannah," he said slowly, "here to gloat." "No, just finished a client dinner," I replied. "How's the Delta Initiative?" he scoffed. "Dead, the board's ripping me apart. Dad barely speaks to me. Says I ruined everything." He downed his drink. "You enjoying this?" I looked him in the eyes. "No, but I'm not sorry either." He stared into his glass. "Dad says letting you go was the biggest mistake of his career." I said nothing. Then he asked the question he'd been holding like a sharp stone in his throat. "Did you sabotage us?" "No," I said calmly. "I didn't need to." "Then how?" he demanded. I leaned in. "I just stopped going above and beyond. Stopped solving problems before they existed. Stopped making people like you look good." He blinked, stunned. "No single employee can matter that much," he said. "Then you've got nothing to worry about," I replied, rising. "Good luck with the board tomorrow." I left him there, drowning in everything he thought he controlled, and I wasn't done yet. The headline hit my inbox at 6:12 a.m. breaking. Marshall Whitmore steps down amid crisis at Whitmore, and Gail they called it early retirement. I called it karma served with corporate stationery. Eric texted me 5 minutes later. Logan threw a stapler at the interim CEO, escorted out by security. I read it twice. Then I laughed. The empire had officially collapsed. The golden father was out. The golden sun melted down like cheap wax. That same morning, a number I didn't recognize lit up my phone. Savannah Reed speaking. "This is Elaine Rooker," said a clipped, authoritative voice. "Chair of the board, we need to meet today." It wasn't a request. It was a white flag. I agreed, noon. Quiet bistro near my office. Elaine was already seated when I arrived, silver hair, tailored navy suit, expression like granite wrapped in silk. She didn't waste time. "You built something we can't replicate," she said flatly. "The systems, the relationships, the flow of everything, it's like trying to fix a watch without knowing how it ticks." She slid a leather folder across the table. "Offer to return as CEO. Immediate start. 3-year contract, triple compensation. Equity, full authority." I opened it. The numbers were impressive, the desperation even more so. And then I said something they weren't ready for. "I'm not interested." Elaine blinked. "Excuse me. I'm offering a 6-month consulting agreement. I'll stabilize operations, document systems, train internal leads, and help you find a new permanent CEO." She stiffened. "We're offering you the top job. Why settle for consultant?" "Because I've built something of my own," I said. "And I like being the one holding the pen." They huddled for 20 minutes, then called me back. "We accept," Elaine said. I had full creative control, a sky-high consulting fee, and the power to choose my liaison. I picked Janelle. She cried on the phone when I told her. "I always knew you'd come back," she whispered. "I'm not coming back," I corrected gently. "I'm leading from outside." 3 days later, I walked back into that building, not as an employee. As the woman they fired, now paid triple to teach them what they threw away. And just when they thought the twist had ended, Elaine leaned in during our final contract meeting. "Savannah, can I ask something?" "Of course. Why not CEO? What's the real reason?" I smiled and stood, gathering my papers. "When Logan fired me, he said I was nothing without this company." I turned to her. "But I knew the truth then, and now you do too. The company is nothing without me." 6 months later, Whitmore and Gale was no longer in crisis. It was stable, efficient, running like the machine I once built in the shadows. Only now the blueprint had names, training guides, accountability. And the heartbeat of that machine? Janelle Carter, promoted, trusted, respected. I'd made her the point person. Taught her the rhythms. She ran it better than I ever did because now the system wasn't built for secrecy. It was built to last. And me? Reed Strategies had expanded to a team of 5. I picked my clients. I set my hours. I declined contracts from companies that reminded me of Logan. I even started mentoring women in operations, ones who reminded me of myself 6 years ago. Then one crisp autumn morning, I got a call. Marshall. He invited me to coffee. He looked thinner but lighter, like someone who'd finally admitted the crown never fit. "You saved the company," he said, stirring his tea. "No," I replied. "I gave you a second chance to save yourselves." He chuckled. Logan's working at a startup now, answering phones, no title, no inheritance. He'll be fine, I said. As long as he learns to earn what he wants. We parted on good terms, not as enemies, not as friends, just two people who had learned the cost of arrogance. But the final twist came from Elaine. 2 weeks before my contract ended, she asked to meet privately. "We want to extend your agreement," she said, "or if you'd reconsider, step in permanently." I smiled. "I've already given you what you needed. But Savannah, I'm not yours to keep, Elaine. I never was." Then I handed her a folder with my final invoice and a note inside, handwritten. "Real power isn't in being irreplaceable. It's in choosing when to walk away." As I left the building for the last time, Janelle walked with me to the elevator. "I still think they should have made you CEO," she said softly. I pressed the lobby button. "Why settle for CEO?" I replied, "when you can be the standard?" I never looked back, because revenge doesn't always mean destruction. Sometimes, it's showing them everything they lost, and still choosing to build something greater without them.